Hello, friends and family in Facebook land. This is Dawn DelVecchio coming to you live from Sedona, Arizona. I just arrived back less than 24 hours ago. And after a very successful set of workshops, ceremonies, and activations at the Merfest 2018 in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So I was inspired to bring this to you today. I actually just literally came back from a hike and a meditation in what I call my secret sacred place in nature here in Sedona that I've shared with no one except my husband. So as I was turning the corner to come back onto my street, I heard the words personal alchemy and empowerment. And I knew that that was the topic that I needed to speak with you about. So just like the trainings that I taught and the ceremonies I taught at Merfest, I am being called here to tune into guidance in order to deliver this. So unlike my workshops, I mean, I have an outline for the workshops and the trainings and for the ceremonies, although they don't always go as planned, because truly, I am being guided at this time to bring things forward in the moment when they are needed, trusting that the message is being delivered on a number of layers or levels, if you will, such that it's possible for, if you come across this, you are receiving the information at the levels at which you are prepared to receive it. So that may be a level of knowledge. You might be receiving information from me, and that's always helpful. You also are receiving an activation via the guides that speak through me or activate me in the transmission of information. And of course, within the context of the information itself, you are receiving guidance or insights that can apply specifically to your circumstance. So when I received this phrase, personal alchemy and empowerment, I received no other information, no other strategies for what to tell you or words. What I receive is a feeling. It's a feeling sense, not an emotion, but it's like a sensation almost that I'm learning to trust. And it's the sensation of my guides being right next to me saying, we're ready to bring something through you. So go and, get ready, get online, or whatever it is. And it is the same feeling that I feel when I am aligned and facilitating a ceremony or working with a client one-on-one in a healing or an activation, or when I'm teaching. So with all of that as my preamble here, first of all, I want to welcome you, whether you're watching this live or you watch it later on. And secondly, I want to say that what I'm going to do now, and if you've been with me before, you know how this works, I'm going to connect in with guidance to see what needs to come forward right now and to be shared around personal alchemy and empowerment. So please stay with me because something interesting could come through this. If you are alive, and you are if you're listening to this, you have come at a very special time on planet Earth. You chose to be here. You knew before you came here that this would be a time of great transition. It's a fascinating time, and many souls chose to come in at this time. Now, there is a gauntlet, if you will. A gauntlet is a good metaphor for this journey we are on. And it is a journey of self-awakening. It is a journey of empowerment through personal alchemical transformation. And so we are born into whatever circumstances we are born into. And we begin the gauntlet. The gauntlet begins in a place of darkness and shadow. The gauntlet began for each of you and each of us in a place of great challenge, where an old paradigm and an old consciousness was the only show on the block, so to speak. And in these times, in the last really several hundred years, several thousand perhaps, and certainly in the period of time where many of us were raised, the paradigm was one of disempowerment, of power in the hands of a few, and personal sovereignty was not necessarily something many of us had access to. Most of us were born in an era in which we looked for a good job to secure our futures in the 3D world, where what we desired and wished for in terms of full self-actualization was more of a pipe dream for most of us than a possibility. And that was what we chose to come into in order to actually, at a personal alchemical level, transmute that old paradigm into the empowerment paradigm of the times ahead. The times when we remember and reclaim the truth of our eternal divine natures and our true power as divinity in form. Now, this sounds grandiose, and yet in each of our lives, in very individual and personal ways, we are being faced with great challenges, many of us at this time, in order to call us to a greater level of accountability and a level of personal empowerment that simply cannot be done with the old mind that saw and perceived, and still for most people sees and perceives, power outside of ourselves, power as external to us, whether that's our parents, whether that's our spouses, whether that's our bosses or our careers, whether that's the monetary system, whether that's international systems of trade, whether that's having to show fingerprints to come back into my own country. Interesting. I never agreed to that. So there are many different examples of where power has been wrested from the people and taken into the hands of a few in order to control, corral, and limit us. And as creator beings who have forgotten who we are and are living in form, we are beginning to shake off the sand in our eyes, the Sandman's dream, and remember, actually, we're the ones who are creating this. And yet we have a sort of mess on our hands because we've been going through this gauntlet of a reality that's been telling us that we don't have power, we don't get to do what we want, we don't get to make choices that are empowering. Everything that's out there has some impact on us in here, and we have no control over it, no decision-making power, no authority or sovereignty over it. And the alchemy is us owning this, that every single thing out there is a reflection of and a mirror of what's in here, both personally and collectively. So at this time, many of us have been really challenged. We have been really challenged with facing some interesting manifestations of the belief systems we've held about not having personal power or authority, of needing to be nice, play nice, needing to fight, needing to defend, attack, needing to whatever, fill in the blank. So I'm dealing with clients and friends who are dealing with ugly divorces, violent family members, psychosis within their personal field, whether that's a lover, a family member, a friend, something, an employer, a colleague, dealing with serious health crises, dealing with financial stress that is at a point of trauma sometimes for people, dealing with health issues with children, dealing with many, many things. And the friends and circles and clients that I work with, we are operating at the level of really wanting to take responsibility at a whole nother level of the game. And so we are the kind of people who are asking questions like, how have I brought this forward in the world for my life as an opportunity for healing and empowerment? What is called for here in order to activate healing and deeper awareness and wisdom in this situation? What needs to be healed in my life in order to transform this circumstance? These are the questions we're asking. Now, you can see that these are questions of personal empowerment, and yet they are not blaming the victim. And I think this is a place where many people have gotten very confused. And when we look at something like the Me Too movement, so let's look at that, because that is one of the real hot potatoes on the agenda right now, about the rampant abuse of power by men to sexually exploit, manipulate, rape, and harm women. And the way that this has deepened the rift of trust between otherwise good men and women, and the way this has also been a source of empowerment for many women. Because for too long, women have been blamed for their own experience of rape and manipulation. Well, why were you wearing that mini skirt? You must have been asking for it. That attitude is so disgusting. And it is so good that the Me Too movement is bringing out just how entitled many men in power have felt themselves to be, that they can manipulate women for sex favors and abuse power. And so I want to really point out that blaming the victim is done. I mean, really, it's done. And simultaneously, if you're thinking at a very simplistic black or white level of things, it might sound like what I am saying in terms of taking personal responsibility is blaming the victim, and I'm not. So I need to connect now and see how can I bring forward the distinction between the two in a way that is most helpful. So let me just connect in here with this. Blaming the victim assumes that the quote-unquote victim asked for a traumatic event to be perpetrated upon them, and that they did it in some way either consciously or that they have no right to see rebalancing and justice. Blaming the victim re-traumatizes the experience of trauma. And there's no circumstance in which that is justified. That is a way for those who are abusing power by using it to dominate others to get away scot-free. It's a part of the old paradigm whose time has come. Blaming the victim is a form of toxicity that happens when we have no other way of ownership, and when the assumption of entitlement has gone on for too long. That's blaming the victim, and that is not the same thing as the new consciousness of personally creating personal alchemy to transmute and empower ourselves, regardless of what experiences of victimhood we've had. So, if for example, I have experienced what can be called a victimization, and I want to say, what is my responsibility here in this? I don't have to look to 3D things like I was wearing something sexy and therefore he raped me. That's not what we're talking about. What I have to look at is where in my deep subconscious or psyche have I been running programs of victimization and domination, which we all have because we've all been programmed for it. That's the paradigm we were born in. Where have I been running that paradigm and operating from a place of either fear or fear of victimization or what's the word? Activated defensiveness or hate or projection of enemies in a way that no longer serves me, in a way that's being asked to be healed. And how can I then use this experience of victimization after I've gotten over the trauma pieces of it, or at least calm down the trauma pieces of it, after I've gotten help and support and some healing? Where can I go now to the next deeper level, the deeper level of this now, and really begin to clean up my own frequency and say, wow, you know what? I am a creator being who's forgotten my power as a divine being. And where can I begin to shed the old, deeply seated belief in domination as a form of personal control? So this may sound like advanced metaphysics, and I don't want it to, and yet I'm having a hard time bringing it across, where I really want to make a distinction between ownership and personal responsibility on the one hand, and blaming the victim on the other, because they really are very different things. When we take responsibility, what we do is we say, I can no longer carry the burden of hate, resentment, bitterness, and attack against this person who victimized me, because it's making me literally sick. And so I need to find within me the part of me that was a vibrational match to that. Even though it was subconscious, I wasn't asking for it. It was somehow a vibrational match. Maybe I hold a lot of hate and anger and resentment towards some other area of my life. And I need to find that, heal it, so that I can cut ties with this old victimizer and no longer drag him or her around like a dead weight, because it's making me sick. Those who have been victimized by war, criminal behavior, rape, pillaging, harm, they were not asking for it. It is just that we have been living in a paradigm of abuse and abuse of power and domination. And so we've all been running these frequencies and these belief systems at a very deep subconscious level. And most people will never have the resources to actually do the personal alchemy of transmuting their own frequency to become a light of love. But those aren't the people I'm talking to. I'm talking to you. And if I'm talking to you, then you are a person who has the capacity to do this work. You are someone who was called to come into this old paradigm and run the gauntlet of trauma, distress, loss, victimization, struggle, financial struggle, maybe emotional struggle, loneliness, all of those things of the old paradigm, in order to awaken in form, in order to remember and reclaim your own divinity, your own personal power, and your own capacity to really return to love as a frequency. And to do that means that you have to go in and look at the shadows, all the old programming, all the old stuff. And that doesn't come up by someone saying, hello, how are you? Are you having a nice life? I just came to ask you to now look at your shadow of hate buried in your subconscious and all the ways that you run hate and judgment frequencies. Because if you're living a beautiful, comfortable life, guess what? You're not going to do it. You're not going to do that alchemical, that personal alchemy. It's when the shit hits the fan in our personal lives that we are turned inward to begin to do the personal alchemy. And so this is why I say, if you have felt victimized in any way in your life, first of all, you're not alone. Second of all, we have extraordinary, on the planet right now, extraordinary tools for healing. Energy healing, psychotherapeutic healing, physical healing, all of that. So get your support. Get your support team around you. Third, no, you didn't ask for it on a level of your personal egoic consciousness. On your eternal soul level, however, you did say, look, if I don't remember something by a certain time to activate the frequency of love and begin to embody love and healing and become a pillar of light, I'm setting up these reminder soul agreements with people to help me to remember that, so that I could go inward and do the personal alchemy to surrender, to forgive, to do deep forgiveness work, and to begin to activate love as a frequency within my being. And so, if this is resonating with you, if this makes any sense, I would really appreciate your feedback. Do I need to bring it down to a more basic level? Do you want me to speak at a deeper level? Like, what does it mean to do personal alchemy? How do you do that? What are the tools for that? Am I triggering you? Just do I sound like I'm saying I'm blaming the victim? If I am, I want to know that, because I'm not, first of all, but I need to be able to explain it better if that sounds like what I'm saying. So we are being called. We are being called at this unique time on the planet to having run the gauntlets to some degree or another, or maybe still running the gauntlets of the old paradigm of suppression, oppression, hate, fear, domination, and to literally alchemically transmute through our beings, through our personal experiences of trauma and distress, to alchemically transmute that base energy into the gold of love, loving kindness, and the light of the divine within us. The light of the divine cannot come into these physical containers unless our frequency is high enough for us to hold that light and be the pillar of light. And the way we do that is by cleaning out the old traumas and dramas. And if we don't go in and actively do that ourselves, we will get triggers at certain times. And astrologically, we can see the timing of it. We will get conflict, we will get obstruction, we will get health challenges, we will get relationship challenges, we will get job loss, we will get something to put us in the state that will trigger our own desire to go inward and say, I don't want to run these old stories anymore. I don't want to run this old fear anymore. I don't want to keep doing this same pattern anymore. And that's when we will begin to take that personal empowerment step of ownership of every aspect of our life. Things aren't going to change. If you are running a story that says, if we only vote in the right government, if we only get rid of Trump, if we only this, if I only fix this health issue, if I only get rid of that crappy ex-husband, if I only, whatever it is, things will get better. If we only solve the problem in the Middle East and we stop having refugees, if we only, no, things are not going to change and go back to anything they were before. We are in the midst of a massive paradigm shift on the planet. We are in the midst of the great apocalypse, the great awakening on planet Earth. And the shakeup and the breakdown are in order for us to birth something new. So clinging to the past, clinging to the old stories, to the old hopes, to the old political structures, to the old religious structures, they are not going to serve the paradigm ahead. Because those old structures were created under a paradigm based in domination and control of the many by the few. They were based in a paradigm of domination by the masculine over the feminine. And by that, I don't mean men over women, although it's become that too. All of those old structures are beginning to crumble, and those who cling to those old structures are going to have a harder time than those who say, right, the shit has now officially hit the fan in my life, and I am going to go inward to look at where I need to clear out all of the old programming, all of the old fear programming, all of the old self-hate, all of the old paradigm of domination, all of the old entitlement, all of the old judgments. I'm going to start doing my inner work so that I can be a pillar of light, because we are only seeing the beginning of this. It's coming down now, folks. 2020 is going to be a very interesting, big time on the planet, but it's already happening. People are having psychotic breaks sometimes because they can't handle the amount of toxic thoughts, hate, fear, judgment running in them. They're poop jars. They're poop thoughts. And they're losing touch with reality. The controllers of this planet are putting the squeeze on to try and control and squeeze us even more. And it's not going to work because there's too much force of light. And force of light doesn't just come from us saying, Om Mani Padme Hung, I love, 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 and then going around secretly judging and hating everyone who pisses you off. Because the frequency that's running is the secret stuff, the silent stuff, where you go in and you get activated by someone who pisses you off because they act like your father or your mother or this, that, or the other. If you're secretly running those frequencies, you're running those frequencies. And so the light comes from us honestly going in and looking at our own shadow material and really transmuting it alchemically, personally, at a personal level, so that we no longer get activated. So I'm going to share a personal story of where this has happened for me. Now, this is, I mean, there are many ways. And those of you who are my personal friends, you've probably heard some of them. I'm not going to go into the details. I can tell you this. I don't just wake up every day and like happy camper and, oh, I love everybody. And I've had to work to get here. And the work has come from being triggered over and over and over again, being personally attacked, having my character assassinated, looking at my ugly face in the mirror. This is how it's done. It's not done by me just going, it's all good. I'm love. It comes from seeing those shadows within me. So a quick one right now, just really quick, and not a, sort of a mild one by comparison, but still a great place to find the shadow material. So yesterday, I had yesterday it was like 2 days of travel. And I took a cheaper Chinese airline. And so I had to deal with a culture that's very different from mine, a culture that does not have the same personal space boundaries as Americans do, and a culture that doesn't understand the meaning of queue, like lining up, right? So Westerners are very much about like, you get in line, you queue up, well, Chinese people aren't like that. They're like, you crowd into wherever you get, right? So I really got to see my own judgments about another culture. And we know that judging a culture is ridiculous because there's all different kinds of people in any one culture. So I just watched my mind do this. Now, there's been a time in my past where there was no watching the mind do this. It was just judgment. These, people, they're all this, they're all that. Look at them, they're blah, 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 blah. They don't even know the meaning of, fill in the blank. It doesn't matter what is said. All of that is judgment frequency. All of it is projecting out and saying, I am separate from you. I am different than you. I am worthy of love and you are not, because you're wrong, because you're this, you're that, you're that. And this is the energy I'm talking about. This is the stuff we have to personally alchemize. So it doesn't matter who you're judging out there. For me, it was this thing of like Chinese people. And again, I was observing myself. I was bringing conscious awareness to the places where I'd get triggered all of a sudden, and the ego mind would start doing these stories, these tales. But then I would come back and I go, okay, look at that. Look at how you're judging those people. They're just people like you and me. They have children. They love their children. They get to go on a vacation. Unlike me, they probably only get one vacation a year. They're excited. They're in a group. Their idea of personal space is very different than yours. So just take a breath, Dawn. Calm down. Let that monkey mind go about judging these poor people. You probably live a much more amazing life than they do. So just activate the frequency of love here and let go of that judgment. So that kind of consciousness is what needs to be brought to situations of all kinds, where we begin to silently in our minds judge, attack, and separate ourselves from the other, seeing them as wrong or different. This is the work of alchemy. This is the work of our times. And none of us are immune to it unless we're an awakened being in this life. We do have them. In the Western world, one of the most famous ones is Eckhart Tolle. So you can look to him. We have many master teachers. We know Jesus was one of these master teachers. We have some also female enlightened teachers who are literally living in the embodiment of love frequency, who no longer have an ego mind that judges and separates itself from others. But those are few and far between. They're role models for us. The rest of us, we're doing our work. We're doing our work. And now is the time, sisters and brothers. Now is the time. If you are watching this, please do the work of looking at, bringing conscious awareness to the places where you are in judgment and separation from your sisters and brothers on the planet, where you are in judgment about yourself, where you are finding circumstances that are so stressful or traumatic that it's calling you inward. Because you are needed, your light is needed, your love is needed on this planet right now. And the only way to really activate that frequency of love in a deep and powerful way is to begin to clear out those old judgments, to observe them within yourself, to recognize them and say, right, I'm surrendering this now. The buck stops here. I'm surrendering these old judgments and I'm activating love instead. And it's a daily practice. This is not something you do once. You do it again and again and again. You offer the judgment up, you offer the fear up, and you return to love again and again and again, sometimes 1,000 times a day. So I do hope that you understand the difference, that I've made a clear enough distinction, even though I've used a lot of words today, which is its own thing about having jet lag, being a little tired. I do hope you understand the distinction between blaming the victim, which is related to the old paradigm of domination, and ownership of our personal responsibility for everything we experience in life. By bringing conscious awareness to our patterning, our subconscious patterning, and to making a conscious choice to surrender what does not serve us, the judgments, the hates, the attack, separation, in favor of love. So with that, I want to say an invitation. I've got a few months left, February 5th through 11th. I'm hosting a retreat for women, empowered feminine leadership for an awakening world. Sisters, it is time for us to be the pillars of light, and we need each other. We need to lift as we rise. We need to find the ways, the tools, the skills, and abilities to be able to do that personal alchemy for our own personal empowerment and for the collective. So if this is sacred work that you feel called to do, I invite you to apply to attend my retreat in northern Thailand. This is a small group retreat, very intimate, very deep, powerful, transformational processes, connections, activations, dancing, and extraordinary vegetarian organic food. So please consider that. If you want more information, you can reach out, or I will add the link to the information page and the application access here. So if you are being called to be a force of light and love in a new paradigm as we go through this great changing of the ages, then I invite you to work with me, either at one of my retreats or personally. Reach out to me. Meantime, you know, if you find someone else that you need to work with, do the work. Do the work. It is time for us to transmute all of that shadow and become the love and light we came here to be. For now, it's been already, wow, I've been on for 32 and a half minutes. So it's time to sign off. Can't believe it went that fast. Okay, sending each of you much love and light until next time. Bye for now.